to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Yeah, probably.
All right, we'd like to start the meeting off with a recognition of one of our past board members. We'd like to call Paul Stansel up. We'd like to just recognize all the time and effort that you've put into being a board member. For 4 years, you've been here from 2009 to 2011 and 2013 to 15. And we really appreciate all the time and effort. We miss you, and we truly appreciate everything that you've done and all the time that you've given to the students of Vernon.
Thank you very much.
And Claire would like to present something to you.
I'd also like to acknowledge Paul for all his great service. It's always kind of sad, mixed emotions when I come here, because it's usually to see somebody leave, but also to acknowledge the service that they have done, because it is a volunteer position, and it takes a lot of effort and a lot of work and a lot of dedication from everyone around this table. So it's always good to acknowledge. And we have a legislative citation from the General Assembly. I'm not loud enough? No. It's from myself, from Senator Guglielmo, and Representative Tim Eckert, and it's to Paul Stansel in recognition of your dedicated public service as a member of the Vernon Board of Education since first elected in 2009 to 2011, and again from 2013 to 2015. Your leadership as a board member and service on the technology, curriculum, and facilities committees has made a difference. We appreciate your commitment to excellence in education and thank you for your caring approach to the needs of our students. The entire membership extends its best wishes on this memorable occasion and expresses the hope for continued success. And it is signed by Martin Looney, the President of the Senate, Speaker of the House, Brendan Sharkey, and Secretary of the State, Denise Merrill. We will miss you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Why not? My last chance, right? Thank you very much, everybody. I really, I loved my time on the board, even through all the trials and heartaches, and even when the people weren't always very happy with us. It is a volunteer position, and every one of you who is doing it now, thank you for your time, and good luck to every one of you. Thanks.
Thank you. We thank you, Mrs. Janoski, for coming out to these meetings for us. We really appreciate it. Thank you again, Paul. Well, we missed it. We'll move on to item 1.2, Veterans Day Superintendent's Challenge and Veterans Day Activity Presentation. But before I say that, first I'd like to welcome Mrs. Laura Bush and Mrs. Judy Clay from our Town Council representing us tonight. So thank you for coming. To this, the Superintendent's Challenge and Veterans Day Activity. Trish and Tammy, please.
So thank you very much for this opportunity. This is Tammy Salmonen, and Tammy and I work together to help bring the Superintendent's Veterans Day Challenge this year. In honor of Veterans Day, the Veterans Day holiday, Mr. McCary challenged all the schools to write a letter, create a drawing, do something to honor our local and distant veterans, those that are deployed and those that are also here in our community. This is the third year that the Superintendent's Challenge has taken place, and in the past couple of years, the students in all the schools created over 2,000 cards for our veterans. This year, we broke that record, and the students made over 3,205 cards. For the Superintendent's Challenge, we presented Northeast School with a trophy, and we invited the local veterans to come along with Tammy Salmonin. And the students there, along with Mr. McCary, presented these cards to our veterans. The military members that were present were Ken Hess from the Marine Corps, Vietnam Veteran Commander, Disabled American Veterans, Chapter 17. We had David Allen, Army, Vietnam Veteran. Also in attendance, we had Robert LaPlante, Army, Vietnam Veteran. Paul Scappa, Navy, Vietnam Veteran, and Myron Craig, along with Tammy, who was a Yeoman First Class Petty Officer with the U.S. Navy. We also had invited Representative Janowski and Senator Guglielmo. And these are some of the samples of the cards that some of the children made. They really put their heart and soul into the drawings and the letters. This student here wrote, "Dear Veteran, thank you for what you have done for the USA and the lives that you have saved." And the state senator, Tony Guglielmo, is also a veteran, so we had the opportunity to honor him also. And these are the veterans that were in attendance that day that we were able to honor. The 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade students came forward and they wrote personal cards that they also shared. These are how the cards were distributed. Some went to the Veterans Home in Rocky Hill. Some were received by the National Guard. They were delivered also to the Phelps Mansion, American Legion, the disabled veterans, some of the local nursing homes like Vernon Manor and Fox Hill Nursing Home, Victory Gardens. And Tammy also brought some to some local restaurants, Denny's and Olive Garden, and some local businesses such as Staples and AutoZone, so that they could hand out some of these handmade cards as veterans came in on Veterans Day to honor them. So we have a little story here from a Vernon Center Middle School teacher. She shares that I was at the Library Service Center today, and Grace Burchard, the young librarian there, told a story and asked me to pass it on. On Veterans Day, she and her father were eating at the Olive Garden in Manchester, and the server asked Mr. Bouchard if he was a veteran. When Mr. Bouchard said yes, the servant returned with a discounted bill and with a card. And the card was on green paper and signed by Matt from Vernon Center Middle School. Mr. Bouchard was very touched and said it was the first time he had ever received a Veterans Day card. Grace was very happy to be able to tell him that she knew someone from VCMS and that we really care about veterans here. So it just goes to show that these small gestures can really influence someone else's day. The Vernon Center Middle School also received a phone call that day from a veteran about a card made by Trey F. This gentleman was also deeply touched and grateful. So it was just a successful Superintendent's Challenge, and I'm glad that we were able to do this in our district. And this is one of my favorite cards here, America plus you equals love.
I want to thank Trish and Tammy who put this together. Even though it's my name, they do all the work. They did a great job, and to be at the ceremony in Northeast School was very, very special. I think the most touching moment was at the end, and there wasn't a dry eye in the whole place. Teachers, students, the veterans, the songs were great, sung by the students. It was really an emotional day, and it was a great day. And I appreciate all the work that all the students did and what Trish and Tammy did. It worked out very, very well. So I think it's a testament to our students and how much they care. And they learned about Veterans Day by being in school and in all the activities. So it was a great day and something we should continue to keep doing. Thank you for your efforts.
Mrs. Russell.
I'm going to say ditto, but I am so proud of our school system for allowing students to learn more about what our veterans have done for us and to still know what they're doing. When I see other school systems and they're not in school, it doesn't allow them to learn. You know, it's a free day for them. So I appreciate everything that we do to make our students recognize how important it is. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for putting that together. I know there was things done at each school to Veterans Day, so I think that's wonderful. And we thank you very much, and we thank you, Tammy, for your service to our country.
Yes, there.
Tammy was just going to present also what she did on Veterans Day.
Oh, please do. We'd love to hear.
So on Veterans Day, I go to the elementary schools to the 5th graders with as many veterans as I can get to go with me. When we go there, we do a presentation to try to make them understand what Veterans Day is about, and it's not about just me or them, it's about all the veterans. So we do a presentation, and at Skinner Road School, we get to have lunch. At Lake Street School, they have a little ceremony before we do our presentation, and they give out corsages and cards, and each of the grade levels sing a song. So it's a really good day. It's long, and you're constantly on the move, but you actually get to educate the kids. So this is just like a quick overview of what we do, but the main part of the presentation is the video clips that we do, because just by talking, it just doesn't show enough. It's more about the video clips and what you see on those videos that really touches them. And we actually had 2 students cry this year at the schools, which wasn't the intention, but that means that they understood what Veterans Day is about. So we go through this, and then one of the things we do play is taps, because when you kind of put this whole slideshow together, it explains how, especially the folding of the flag, and why you're presenting the flag to that next of kin. And in one of the video clips, it'll show how you bring a fallen soldier back home. So for this is just a little clip about taps, and when you play it, we would explain to the kids when we play the taps.
Cancel out, Trish.
And then we explain about Old Glory. We ask them if they know where Old Glory is and how Old Glory was named. So they'll read about, the different students will read the slideshows for us, and they read about where Old Glory was named from. And then we go to a flag presentation ceremony about Old Glory, because what I want them to do is listen to the words in this flag passing ceremony. So as they listen to those words, they can see what the flag really means and where it's been and what it's done for the country.
Flag ceremony participants. Post. I am the flag of the United States of America. My name is Old Glory. I fly atop the world's tallest buildings. I stand watch in America's halls of justice. I fly majestically over great institutions of learning. I stand guard with the greatest military power in the world. Look up and see me. I stand for peace, honor, truth, and justice. I stand for freedom. I am confident, I am arrogant, I am proud. When I am flown with my fellow banners, my head is held a little higher, my colors a little truer. I bow to no one. I am recognized all over the world. I am worshipped. I am saluted. I am respected. I am revered. I am loved. I am feared. For more than 200 years, I have fought in every battle of every war. Gettysburg, Shiloh, Appomattox, San Juan Hill, the trenches of France, the Argonne Forest, Anzio, Rome, the beaches of Normandy, the jungles of Guam, Okinawa, Tarawa, Korea, Vietnam, in the heat of the Persian Gulf, and a score of other places, long forgotten by all but those who were there with me. I was there. I led my sailors and Marines. I followed them. I watched over them. They loved me. I was on a small hill on Iwo Jima. I was dirty, battle-torn, and tired, but my sailors and Marines cheered me. I was proud. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of countries that I have helped to set free. It does not hurt, for I am invincible. I have been soiled, burned, torn, and trampled on the streets of my own country. And when it is done by those with whom I have served in battle, it hurts. But I shall overcome, for I am strong. I have slipped the surely bonds of earth, and from my vantage point on the moon, I stand watch over the new frontiers of space. I have been the silent witness to all of America's finest moments. But my finest hour comes when I am torn into strips to be used as bandages for my wounded comrades on the field of battle. When I fly half-mast to honor my sailors and Marines, and when I lie in the trembling arms of a grieved mother at the graveside of her fallen son or daughter, I am proud. My name is Old Glory. Long may I wave, dear God, long may I wave.
So we asked them as they're listening to this, do they see the voice changing? And why do they think the voice is changing as it's being read? And if they recognize, when we go like now we're talking about the Iwo Jima statue, do they remember hearing that in there? And what else did they hear that the flag did? And we explained what Iwo Jima is, the statue. We explained the fallen soldier statue here and asked them what they see. If they see the boondockers, the helmet, the rifle, the soldier, and what do they think that child is doing, or does that person have to know? So we actually interact with the kids to see how they feel. And then here's all Arlington. So you have where you have the silence and respect, you have the soldier placing the flag, you have the cemetery, and then you have the tomb of the unknown soldier. And then we play a video clip to explain to them that we asked them, what are you supposed to have, silence and respect? Well, the video clip's going to show that some people didn't have the silence and respect. So this is what they do. So we show them a little video clip for that. It's on the next slide. And then we ask them if they know what the tomb of the unknown soldier is.
of silence and respect.
And we ask them if they know how many steps does the guard take. It's 21 steps down, 21 steps back, and we explain what it takes to keep that uniform measured, because they measure everything that they put on the uniform. We talk about the POW MIA table and ask them when they go home for their homework if they can actually research what each item represents, and that way there they can get a full understanding of what is on the table and why everything is there and why the chair is empty. This is an Angel Flight home video. It explains how the Air Force brings home a fallen soldier.
Andrews Tower, good morning. Angel Flight Bravo 02 ready for takeoff. Angel Flight Bravo 02, you're number 1 for takeoff. Runway 25, get them home, boys.
All I ever wanted to do was fly, leave this world and live in the sky. I let the C-130 out of Fort Worth town. I go up some days I don't want to come down. But well, I fly that plane, call the Angel Flight. Come on, brother, you're with me tonight. Between heaven and earth, you're never alone. On the Angel Flight, come on, brother, I'm taking you home. I love my family and I love this land, but tonight this flight's for another man. We do what we do 'cause we heard the call. Some gave a little but he gave it all. I fly that plane, call the Angel Flight. Come on, brother, you're with me tonight. Brother, you're with me tonight. Between heaven and earth, you're never alone. On the Angel Flight, come on, brother, I'm taking you home. Come on, brother, I'm taking you home. It's quiet and the stars are bright. Feels kinda like church in here tonight. It don't matter where we touch down. On the Angel Flight, it's sacred ground. When I fly that plane, call the Angel Flight. Got a hero riding with us tonight. Between heaven and earth, you're never alone. On the Angel Flight, come on, brother, I'm taking you home. Come on, brother, I'm taking taking you home. Come on, brother, I'm taking you home.
Commercial tower, get everything at Angel Flight Bravo 02, security on 5 miles. Angel Flight Bravo 02, you're number 1 for landing. Welcome home.
And then at the end, we play Lee Greenwood for their final song.
That's just amazing. Thank you so much for sharing that.
I've run across Tammy in my other life with Boy Scouts. Tammy's also involved with Disabled Veterans of America in Manchester, I believe it is.
Correct.
Because the Boy Scouts also help. We have the flags Memorial Day for our fallen veterans.
Yes.
So I want to thank you for your service.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was really wonderful. And I'm surprised only 2 students were crying. But thank you for all your time and effort. We really appreciate it.
We enjoy it because it just makes, it all ties together so that you go back to the whole flag during that video, and then it's explaining, it all ties together. So I enjoy that the kids interact with us and actually will talk, and we just explain a lot of things, and I enjoy that they understand it.
And that's wonderful. We really appreciate it. I think it is great that our kids are in school to learn this because it's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fisher. I want to commend Tammy again for what they did. I came from a district where we didn't go to school on Veterans Day, and I came here and I'm like, it's different, so I came in. I was at Center Road School where the veterans were speaking. I believe it was in 5th grade. You could hear a pin drop. The students were listening, they were paying attention. And the videos, as you can tell, are very, very powerful, along with PowerPoint. So they do a great job. And the veterans that were there were so, they're good people, and you could feel it. So it was really, really good. So I agree with Mrs. Russell. Keep them in school on Veterans Day. Keep doing this. The veterans come in. We still do the challenge. I think it's a great teachable moment. So I just wanted to add that.
It is, and I forgot, and actually the veterans that go with me, they heal by going to the schools. It heals them too. And we just like to see the cards when we give them out. When we go to Rocky Hill, there's 117 people in the hospital. We put the bags, I buy stuff from our chapter, we put a bag together and we bring it to each person. And I mean, it's the cards, they really mean a lot to the kids.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thank
We
you.
really appreciate it. Now we'll move on to item 1.3, which is acknowledgement of Connecticut Association of Board of Education's award. Carrie?
So on this past weekend, 6 board members from the Vernon Board of Education were present. I'm happy to report that the Vernon Board of Education received a K-1 Leadership Award. Out of 34 Level 1 criteria, the board fulfilled 22 of the 34 levels. I was very proud to be part of the district there. The Leadership Award is in 5 different categories: professional development, communications, board leadership, relationships, and professional learning for themselves. This is the 10th year that the Vernon Board of Education has received this award. I think it's outstanding that that happens. In addition, as superintendents who make side bets, I had the most out of any superintendent I spoke to. 6 board members were there, which I think is another commendable thing. And I'm very, very proud to be associated with this Board of Education. And I think the awards is a huge accomplishment for the board. So I want to thank everybody. We do have the award. It will go up on the board. We haven't done the plaque yet because it was Friday or Saturday. So it'll go up there and we'll have the award for everyone to see. Thank you.
I also want to add that we did win an honorable mention for our social media, which we can thank Trish for, because she does a lot of that work for us, or all of it. So thank you very much for doing that, which recognizes our board for the work that we do do. Now we'll move on to item 2.0, the consent agenda. 2.1. Anyone would like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda? Mrs. Arndt?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Mrs. Russell, anyone want to pull any of these items? No? Okay, all those in favor of approving the consent agenda? It's unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Move on to item 3.0, the Secretary's report. 3.1, opportunity for Board of Education to add or delete agenda items. Does anyone want to add or delete an agenda item tonight? No? Okay, move on to item 3.2, Rockville High School Student Representatives Report. I see they're not here. We'll move on to item 4.0, Community Forum. Opportunity for comments on agenda items, potential future agenda items, or general information provided to the board from citizens and community organizations. Is there anyone who wishes to address the board this evening? Not worry anymore. All right, next on the agenda is our teaching and learning, but because we have someone here from out of town to give us a presentation, would you mind if we moved our presentation from the loan and prune ahead of Bob? Do you mind, Bob? So we can get our athletic field facility report out.
I have a tripod that's going to have some graphics on it. Maybe over here.
Wherever
We can turn it as we go so the camera can see it and move it back.
You understand? You standing?
Sure.
Okay.
Makes it easier.
This is why.
Okay, so you're going to be over there?
I'm here.
Okay. Is that good for everyone? Actually, pull it up. Go further.
The board members also have a packet of the presentation.
Oh, okay, great. I wasn't aware of that. Well, thank you for having me. My name is Kevin Fuselier. I'm a Connecticut licensed landscape architect and associate with Malone and McBroom in Cheshire. A few months ago, we worked with a Board of Ed Fields Committee, ad hoc Fields Committee, to do a feasibility study for one of the field facilities at Rockville High School. The field in question we refer to in our report as the South Fields, but I believe you call it the Upper Fields? Correct. And it's a complex that consists of an existing baseball field, an existing softball field, which is used for varsity softball, and then a pretty substantial overlay area between the two fields, which can be used to accommodate any field sport, football, soccer, field hockey, lacrosse. So we were tasked with a few things. We were tasked with inventory what we have. We collected available mapping, we used aerials, we made site visits. This is a representation of one of our possible solutions, but this is really what's out there now, minus a few of the bells and whistles that we'll talk about in a moment. But it's a natural grass facility. We were tasked with how can we improve this with natural turf? How could we potentially incorporate synthetic turf? And then based on the feedback I received at our first meeting, I went off on my own and did a third concept and put a hybrid together. So the concept you're looking at here is the natural grass approach. This is concept A. Basically, we keep baseball and softball in the same location, but we improve them. Baseball, just to back up a little bit, when we asked the committee for feedback, the baseball field was the one that we got the most feedback about, and that it's really not that safe. The topography out there is kind of all over the place. There's humps and bumps and things that can cause athletes to injure themselves. So we were told that this facility doesn't even get used. Softball, on the other hand, the field's great. The fencing is very old. So some of it's outdated, but the grass and the clay infield are really good over there. So taking that into account, what you see here, and it's going to be common on the next two, this is the next graphic, but we're showing all new fencing, new backstops, new dugouts. We are doing that for both baseball and softball, new spectator viewing areas, which are protected with fencing, something that's not out there right now in some locations. And then we show a big enhancement for the multi-purpose field, really making this a focal field, adding a grandstand bleacher system to it. New accessible walkways, pathways to both facilities, and we also incorporated lighting. So when the budget numbers, when you look at it, we tried to make it a menu approach, but you know, the budget numbers get up there when you talk about every single element that we're incorporating. And this became with contingency, because we're very early in the design, we carry a very high contingency. This was almost a $2.5 million project. But again, you know, you take lighting out and you save almost $1 million. You take irrigation out, you can focus on, with natural grass, you can focus on one facility versus the other, piecemeal it, do a little bit here and there. Do any or all of it, really. And that's how we tried to present it in the report. So our second concept, different shade of green. We went, well, what if this was all synthetic turf? Probably be the most significant synthetic turf facility in the state, size-wise, rather large with all fields, but we have shortened up some of the areas that wouldn't be used as much to save some costs. But again, all new fencing. This time we're fully enclosing the field in. With synthetic turf, you would want to protect your investment, keep animals and bikes and various things off. So we typically fully secure them with fencing. So a lot more fencing, but the backstops are the same, benches, dugouts, and again the grandstands for the multi-purpose field. With synthetic turf, we've done a few ball fields. For baseball, you can use a portable mound. We have a little blurb in our report about that. So when this field's not in use, if you take the mound away, you have this whole large area that's unobstructed that can be used for all sports, for practice. We found that to be very popular, although some of the traditionalists really want that clay mound in there. When you mix clay with synthetic turf, it kind of becomes a maintenance headache, but a lot of facilities do it because they want that real pitching mound. Softball, it's not an issue because there isn't a raised mound there. But again, with synthetic turf, it's just a different color fiber. Has the appearance of a traditional baseball field, but again, it's synthetic fibers with an infill product in there. Obviously, synthetic turf does cost more than most natural grass fields. However, you can build natural grass fields to all different levels. But this concept with the lighting and all the other elements, this was almost a $5 million concept. It's a big field. It would be used a lot though. Natural grass you can use about 20 hours a week. That's if you get no rain and you're maintaining it. This field with lights, you could use as much as the neighbors allow you to. There's really no limit to synthetic turf. However, you know, we have a piece in here about maintenance. There is indeed less maintenance with synthetic turf, but you have to factor in the cost to replace this field. We're finding fields are warranted for 8 years. They're lasting 10, 12, 14 years in some cases. But at that point, a single field, let's say, is $500,000. Break that cost down over 10 years, and all of a sudden, your low maintenance cost really just became more the same, if not more, of maintaining a natural turf field. But again, you can't beat how much you can use these. That's why people do go with synthetic turf. It's a consistent surface where natural grass, depending on the level of maintenance, can be very nice or can be dangerous. Synthetic turf is consistent, it lasts a long time, and you can just beat it up. So with that, as I mentioned, we came up taking the feedback about the baseball field being unusable at this time. I just wanted to throw another concept out there, and this is what we call the hybrid. This is renovating and reconstructing parts of the existing varsity softball field. But then, you know, what would happen? We could do a synthetic turf stadium here. You lose the baseball field, but you get a full multi-purpose synthetic turf field, football, soccer, field hockey, lacrosse, and you know, you could probably put as much seating as you want out there. I think we're showing about 250 seats per side here. So we just looked at it from a third angle to just give one more option. And with lighting and all the bells and whistles, this was almost a $3 million concept. But again, this one, you know, do the improvements to softball now. Later on, you feel like you want to do the turf field, it's an option. Or you can just go back and do improvements to the baseball field. So those are the three concepts we came up with. As I told the committee, there's probably 50 concepts we could come up with, minor variations, but we wanted to present some that we thought made sense. I think the committee liked this, but didn't want to lose the baseball field, was my understanding from our last meeting. So those are the concepts. We also, as just part of our, we gave a scope, a typical scope of engineering services. If this project was to move forward from design through construction. Since this is schematic design, we carry that big contingency. Sometimes we advise clients to move forward with survey, topographic survey, do some test pits out there, find out what the materials are so you can start putting better, tighter numbers to whatever concept you may go with. But again, we presented costs in here that it could be broken down. Well, what if we just want to do new fencing for softball? What if we want to do new fencing for baseball? So those numbers are in there, and they're good numbers. Just last, I jumped around a little bit, but we did have a section about synthetic turf versus natural grass in our report. A lot of schools are going synthetic turf, as we all know, and there are the benefits to it, but there's nothing wrong with natural grass either. It's just different maintenance requirements and different use capabilities. So hopefully I didn't go too quickly. I have a tendency to speak rather fast. But
does anybody have any questions?
What research do you have to support the synthetic turf as opposed to the athletes?
Well, that's a pretty big question. There's a lot of synthetic turf for safety.
Well, yeah.
Was that health? Health? Well, it's been a big topic lately. NBC has done some studies. You know, we're not scientists. We have done some of our own research on the environmental and heat effects of synthetic turf. But that was many, many years ago, and now there's probably 70 plus studies. And we point to those studies. Most of them show that there has not been a proven elevated risk with the use of crumb rubber as infill. That said, there are alternate infills out there. We just recently did one over at South Windsor that used a coated sand product, and they made the choice. They said, well, you know, we have some neighbors that are opposed to crumb rubber. There are some options out there that cost quite a bit more, but why don't we consider that? And you know, the neighbors that were opposed to the field accepted that as an alternative. So they don't have ground up tires. But again, studies show, and even the state of Connecticut say that there's no elevated health risk with use of the recycled tires in the infill. There's going to be more studies done. They'll always be doing studies. So right now, we can only provide you with the reports that either way, the study's done either way, and you have to make an educated decision.
Thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Anybody else have any questions? Linda. Through the board, through the chair, sorry.
I would like to know how long have these synthetic fields been put into place?
The first one in Connecticut, and I think it was pretty much with the national trend, was 96, 97. So we're coming up on 20 years. So we're seeing a lot of fields now being replaced because they are at the end of their, some are at their second lifespan, those original ones. I think Norwalk High School was the first one here in the state of Connecticut.
Norwalk?
Yeah, and up until just recently, they all used the same infill, sand mixed with chrome rubber, which is from recycled tires. But now we are seeing, because of the news out there and people's concerns, there's options out there. Most of the options were developed in Europe for soccer, trying to make a more natural synthetic turf field, play more like natural grass. But now we're seeing that being used for football and lacrosse and sports that we play here.
And again, how many years do they typically last?
Almost all manufacturers warranty the field for 8 years, so that no matter what happens to it, if it wears out, if it breaks down, if it falls apart, they're going to replace it at no cost for 8 years as long as you maintain it. However, we're involved in a replacement project in Bryant University in Smithfield, Rhode Island, and I believe their field was 12 years old. They could have easily gotten a couple more years of use out of it before replacing it, but they were just doing a lot of capital improvement projects, and that one, it was its time.
And one other question. I was reading about the mound can be difficult to move.
Yeah, we put that in there. It takes a few people to disassemble it. It's not like, oh, get the mound out of there, let's go practice. You know, you're gonna have to get a few people out there. It'll take it apart in about 6 sections, pull them off to the side. So it's portable, but we just like to put the caveat in there. It's not too easy, portable.
And that takes how long to do?
The school we did it at last was the Gunnery, and I believe it took 3 people about 45 minutes to do.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Thank you, through the chair. It's listed in the report that the annual cost of a grass field is about $30,000 for maintenance and upkeep. But what's the lifespan on the reconstruction of a grass field?
Well, as well as you maintain it, it will last. We listed in there some of the typical annual maintenance tasks, and if you're not overusing it, if you're overusing it, say goodbye to the field. You'll kill the grass and you'll overcompact the earth, and you won't be able to restore it without a major overhaul. But no, there's no reason a grass field can't last 50 years as long as you're maintaining it well, keeping out any weeds and things like that. It probably could even go longer. But again, you know, turf is tough because there's $300,000 natural grass fields, and there's $1 million type that acts like a synthetic turf field. Is all sand, drains, has under drainage, it needs to be constantly irrigated and fertilized. So there's various levels. That 30,000 is a good average number, but you know, pros are spending 50, 60, probably even more than that a year to maintain their fields. And then they don't use them on top of it. They use them once a week or once every other week. But yeah, there's no reason a natural grass field just cannot, you know, can keep being used over and over again. It's just you have to really take care of it.
Okay, and as far as the turf fields, how much of the costs in your estimates here would we see again at replacement time, say 10 years?
Well, I put a line in there that basically a standard size field, and we can use it on this one. Let's see what I put for that. So the turf itself and the drainage is 850,000. Let's say that of that 800, that's everything underneath here too. 500,000 is a good number to use on a standard size field. So not really knowing inflation prices, what they'll be, I would say a safe bet is 500,000 to replace this one. Now if you went with the big field, that's 3 times the size. So I imagine the price shouldn't go up too much over time, but it is, there are variables that could make it go up more.
So the earthwork would not be needed to be done again?
You don't need to do the earthwork again. There's a lot of different ways to build a turf field, and under this study, we went with a traditional method. Basically, they come in, they cut the carpet into slices, they can pull out the infill and reuse it or use it elsewhere. The carpet can get cut up and recycled. But then under there is a thick layer of drainage stone, and under a traditional system, the contractor would just go in and reshape it because it's going to get disturbed by the removal activity. So there might be $40,000, $50,000 in some cleanup, shaping work that has to be done, and then the new carpet comes out and is installed. So you don't have to rip up everything. It's just really just the carpet and just a little cleanup work.
And what's the lifespan on the dugouts and backstops?
Again, if they're maintained, they should last as long as you can use them. We talk about a few different levels of dugouts. There's fully enclosed concrete dugouts. We do a lot of facilities that are just 8-foot high chain link fence or 6-foot high chain link fence. You can put a roof over it. You can leave it open. So you know, chain link gets beat up. So you might have to change the fabric, or you might change out the whole system. It's tough to put an exact year on it. You know, probably by the time you're ready to replace it, you know, there's newer I don't know what dugouts, maybe there's not newer technologies out there. But they would probably come with a standard, depending on what system you buy, but maybe like a 5-year warranty. But those things you really have to watch out for vandalism more. They don't, you know, a good chain link fence should hold together as long as the mower's not hitting it all the time.
Thank you.
Mr. Linton?
We'll go back to your first schematic, the natural turf one, please. That's probably the reality you're going to see over on the upper fields on high school. When we talked about this originally back in July or June, whenever we met, we wanted to get the synthetic turf field in there just to show the massive expense with synthetic fields that are out there today. If you look at this 10 years out, there's really no cost difference between natural field and a synthetic field. So everybody loves the bright, shiny, brand new field of a synthetic turf, but when you start factoring out over decades, it's a wash with the cost. You just really need to have a maintenance program, you need to have a budget, you need to have somebody actually out there doing the work and knows what they're doing, and you can get away with a natural turf for what we use it for either the school district or the town athletic needs. The natural turf is fine. So I think for $2.5 million, if you went with everything that's on that schematic, you know, the lights, the grandstand, you know, whole, you know, A to Z, soup to nuts, that's great, but even that's not going to happen. I mean, we need to do that incrementally. We have, if we do get the grant in January from the state, we have grant for the fencing, the backstops, the dugouts. So that's probably how, in my opinion, we should tackle that project, just do a little bit every year, so it's not one big dollar amount in one fiscal year. So I think that's what you're going to end up seeing, is what you see up there now versus, you know, the synthetic football field or synthetic softball, baseball, multi-purpose soccer field. So that's probably more reality based on our budget and our needs. It's right there.
Mrs. Owen? Through you to Mr. Linton, please. You almost answered my question, Steve. You touched on the maintenance issue, that the natural grass requires a lot more, my impression from all of this is requires a lot more commitment on our part for maintaining and the hours that it's used and the expertise of staff and all. Is that something that we really should consider? I know when we've done fields in the past, and I don't mean this in a disparaging way to anyone, but we would need to make a commitment, I'm assuming, to who's maintaining and how they're maintaining, and that they know what they're doing. We've had that discussion then, if we make an investment to make the most of it.
Correct, that's what we're trying to do, both with equipment, materials, and then personnel. We're trying to get that dialogue going. You know, it's great to buy new, but it's bad that in 10 years, that new product you bought, you know, system, it's just gone down. It's gone downhill because we haven't maintained it, we haven't budgeted for it. So, like we've talked about before, it really comes to us with our priorities, our expectations, and our budget. So this is just part of the puzzle of what we were talking about earlier tonight. You know, all our different priorities and the limited dollars that we have. But you know, when we start rebuilding this, we need to start thinking about maintaining it. And if we start doing that, it's less money to replace it because we're getting more years out of that particular, you know, facility or product, or you know, however you want to look at it.
Provided we maintain it the way it's
Correct.
supposed to be maintained, so I would think that's a pretty important part of it.
Correct, but ultimately we have to fund that, and that, you know, that's our,
Right.
you know, starts with us. So
Who's been part of that piece of the discussion, the maintenance piece of the discussion?
well, that basically came out from the athletic committee through ad hoc. So now we're going to move it over to facilities and start, you know, keep going with, you know, Mr. Peluso, get some dialogue going with Mr. Denny and through the mayor's office. So just keep working it that way.
Okay, so this is great, but there's still a lot of
Oh yeah, a lot of work.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Glenn?
On option one, does that have a chain link fence around the entire perimeter of the entire facility?
No, we don't have any fencing along the wood line. So we are calling for new fencing from, basically what we do is we have the backstop for baseball. We extend 8 foot, 6 foot or 8 foot beyond the dugout and spectator viewing areas. Heading around the other way, we're calling for a replacement of the fence along the parking lot all the way back to the end of spectator seating for softball. But then we don't have any outfield fencing, and we don't have any fencing by the tree line.
The school is where in relation to that?
Right here.
Okay. I've seen people park on the fields at times. You would have to do something, have that kind of investment to prevent people from doing that in the future.
Yeah, I agree with that. Well, that's one nice thing about the natural turf versus synthetic. You can get away with that. If need be, you can need to do that for overflow parking, or if there's an event on that. You cannot do that on a synthetic field.
Just do it on a dry day.
Correct.
Well, I've seen it done on a non-dry day, let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Correct.
I have a question for Mr. Picaro. In the application for the Alliance District funding, did we put in for a fence all the way around, or where was the fencing that we put in for?
The fencing that we put in for is similar to this, not the full perimeter.
The full thing, okay. Thank you. Mr. Kemp.
The Alliance District will not pay for synthetic, if I remember correctly. Just to keep that in mind. I have a question on the baseball. Currently, it's played at Henry Park. And so the question is, if we invest in a repair and upkeep of a field that they're currently not using, will they come back? I'm not sure why they're there, other than if I looked at the report, it says things are dangerous there. I think that's what you just said.
That's what we were told
I don't know if
by members of the committee.
necessarily, but leave that aside. If they're at Henry Park, are they going to come back? Steve, what's your sense about that?
I know through discussions with Mr. Rocket, he'd like to have varsity baseball back at high school. But, knowing the safety issues that are there presently, it's a wise decision that it is held at Henry Park. So if that field gets renovated soon, both the fencing and actually the surface taken care of, I don't see any reason why baseball could be brought back there next year or two.
Honestly, I don't know. I'm not saying one way or the other. They've been at Henry Park now for a while.
Well, for good reason. You've seen it.
Right. I mean, I just would like to know, if we do this, would they want to come back? Because one of the options is to totally give up baseball. That's the one with synthetic, okay? And so, I'm not sure how you jump to that conclusion that we wouldn't ever play baseball here, but that kind of prompted my question. Will they come back or not? Okay, it just remains to be an open issue. The other question I had, it really is a town answer for us. In projects of this scope, sometimes they made this a project of the Permanent Municipal Building Committee. And I don't know what the town's position would be on this. Is it that large a project where they would want the PMBC to be the committee overseeing it, in which case they often would be the clerk of the works as they were in years past, or not. So that's just to be determined. And we have a representative to the town council, so maybe you can ask them, if we did a project of this scope, would they want it to be a PMBC project or not?
Anybody else have any other questions, comments? Mrs. Arndt.
Mr. Kemp's comments make me wonder if the baseball team is happy at Henry Park, would we need to do the baseball field as a project? I understand what you said about Mr. Rocket, and I don't expect anybody to answer that, but it just makes me wonder if that becomes a necessary part of the project, or if baseball is happy where it is.
In my opinion, and not the board's, I think it's a gem that we have at Rockville High School with all the facilities being in one spot. Some towns travel across the street, some towns travel across town to get to their facilities. So I think what we have with some spending, a significant amount of money is a diamond in the rough. To have the kids just walk out the locker rooms and they're right there at the facilities is a great asset. Going across town with personal vehicles, with maybe renting a bus, so it's safe for kids to get from point A to point B. I think that's a cost that we shouldn't really be incurring. But I think we're doing some minor renovations there. I think we can get many years out of that and take the pressure off of Henry Park, because Henry Park now has additional pressures from both high school varsity and JV team practicing there as well as playing there. So the money you're not spending there, you're just spending across town. It's coming out of a different column, but it's still an expense. So I think it would be wise money to get that facility back up to safety standards and celebrate the gem that we have there on that property. So in my opinion, we should spend money there and take pressure off the town in regards to Henry Park. That's just my opinion.
Anyone else? Linda, through the chair. Mr. Linton, it seems to me, I agree with you that I would think the students would be happy at home. And there's always the question, the liability question of transporting across town. But I'm assuming that the town would still pay to maintain Henry Park regardless. But I agree. My personal opinion is I agree. I think the students would be happier at the school. Thank you. Anyone else? Well, thank you very much, Ken. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
I think we're not. Go back to item 5.0, teaching and learning, 5.1, the Northwest Evaluation Association results. And this will go to Mr. Testa.
Thank you. Good evening. You have a copy of the presentation in your folder. I just want to take a few minutes to share with you our MAP assessment scores for the fall. Just as a background, we do assess our students 3 times a year in the fall, winter, and spring. This is our first full year of implementation. Last year, we did adapt NWA assessments. We only assessed during 2 windows, late fall, which was probably early December, and then in the spring. So this year, we have the benefit of being able to assess our students 3 times during the year. Just a little bit of background about MAP. Our students take MAP assessments, and basically what MAP assessments are, they're computer adaptive and interim formative assessments. So they adapt to each student's learning level, and we're measuring students' progress in reading, language usage, and mathematics. Students receive a RIT score, which is a RASH unit. Basically, a RIT score is an estimation of a student's instructional level. It also measures their student progress throughout the year. So all students receive the RIT score in the fall, and teachers, and we can really check their progress throughout each window. To continue it's like you may chart on your home, you may have a chart at your home measuring your child's height, certain times during the year. It's the same concept. It's a growth chart to show how much students have grown from one year to the next. Map assessments do the same thing. They measure your students' growth in math, reading, and language usage. So really this information enables our teachers to pinpoint what students have learned and what students are ready to learn. If you look on the next slide on page 4, just a little bit more information. Understanding the risk score is a guideline, so we can determine how our students are performing, how many students are performing at, above, or below grade level compared to students across the nation. However, it is important to remember that a MAP test is just one test at one point in time. It does not measure students' intelligence or capacity for learning. Again, when making important decisions about students, it's really important to consider MAP test results along with other data, such as classroom performance and other test scores. On page 5, slide 5, those are the normed tables. For this year, they were re-normed, so you see 2015 reading norms. So for example, grade 2 in reading, we just finished up the beginning of the year assessments and really in the beginning of the year. So our students, the normed average score is a 174.7 for our grade 2 students in reading. So when I report the scores to you tonight, it'll be the percentage of students at or above the normed status table found here on this table. What is the difference between a formative and a summative assessment? A formative assessment, really the goal of that is to monitor student learning, to provide ongoing feedback. Formative assessments happen during the course of a lesson. It may be a warm-up. The teacher may start with a warm-up. They may end with an exit slip. The MAP assessments are considered formative assessment because students will use, or teachers will use that data to inform instruction. And I'll show you in a few more slides what that looks like. Teachers will get a report, a class report, and it kind of groups students according to their RIT scores, and it gives them information, allows them to group their students and focus on, really differentiate and focus instruction. A summative assessment, which is a little bit different, it's really evaluating student learning at the end of an instructional unit. So our SBAC assessments are summative. A final project, senior recital, midterm exam, those are all summative assessments. If you look the next slide, slide on page 7, those are our fall reading scores. So that previous chart I showed you at the beginning of the year, if you look from grades 1 through 5, you can see the percentage of students at or above our mean RIT score. You can see grade 2 at 70%, and the other grade levels according to grade 1 all the way through grade 5. The next slide shows you grades 6 through 10 in reading, the percentage of students at or above our mean RIT score. Then we move on to mathematics. You also notice grade 2, not only in reading and in math, their scores are above all other grade levels from grades 1 through 5. And we also have grades 6 through 10. And you can see where our students are performing right now in the fall screen window. The next slide is a report that the teachers receive. one of the many reports, and you can see that there's grade ranges for the RIT scores, so you can see how many students you have within the 151 to 160 range. So this really gives teachers more information about how their students are performing, what skills they need to work on, helps teachers focus on small group instruction, tailoring instruction to their particular students' needs. It also helps teachers set goals for individual students. We know the research on goal setting, students that are setting goals, there's a great correlation to growth through goal setting and tracking of their goals. So, and then the other slide, the next slide here is another report. Not only does it show the ranges of the RIT scores, but certain skills that our teachers can focus on. So this is part of the learning continuum, which provides teachers with a class view by goal, sub-goal, and RIT ranges. It helps to inform decisions for grouping, differentiating instruction, targeting interventions. It groups students by their RIT score bands to clearly show where students are and where they're ready to learn. So teachers have been using this information in their classrooms to set up small groups, as I said, differentiate instruction. So this is another tool that NWA provides to give teachers more information. One of the questions we have is the correlation between NWA and our SBAC assessments that we took. So SBAC, again, remember, is a summative assessment, but is there a correlation between the summative assessment and this interim NWA assessment? So just some information that was provided to me by NWA. They are doing studies coming by the end of the month. NWA is updating their MAP reports to include predictions of student scores on the next Smarter Balance assessment. And we'll see those information in these 3 different reports that teachers will have access to. So there's a class breakdown report, projected proficiency summary report, and comprehensive data file. And finally, in December, NWA is doing a linking study which will connect the scale of Smarter Balance Math and English Language Arts tests with math, and reading assessments. And that's going to be released in December. I know I went kind of quickly, but I wanted to open it up for questions. So if you have any questions about any of the slides, I'd be happy to answer your questions at this time.
Start with Mr. Kalina.
In the chair, would it be a good characterization to say that the opening or beginning year mean scores are largely based on previous year's work?
Yes, I think this year, because it'll be the full year that we see, a lot of our students, it was the first few weeks of school, so there was no new instruction. When they took the assessments in the fall window, which I believe was the first 2 or 3 weeks of school, it was based on what they learned last year.
Now, just looking at these charts, essentially glancing at them, one thing I've noticed is that like the elementary school grades, like 1st through 5th, and then you have the middle school grades, which are 7 through 8, and then high school 9 through 12. You notice that on each one of them, it shows like from the first year that the student enters the school, if the, like for instance, grade 2 is their results from basically from their first year of work at the elementary school, you get a reasonably high score, and then from there it drops down. And then you notice the same thing with the reading, the mathematics. The second grouping seems to be the highest, and they drop off. Could that be attributable to the fact that the students are really interested in learning in a new environment, new school? It carries over to the following year, and then they just drop off to lose interest? Or, I mean, how would you characterize why we're seeing it just go like straight down after that?
It's really early to determine that. We obviously saw that too, especially grade 7. You can see that 63.6% of our students are at or above the norm in reading. Because we haven't had a full year, it's hard to predict why that's happening. That's certainly questions we have. We can drill down to the student level and actually see where our students are performing, to see how many students that haven't made goal, how close they are. So it gives teachers that, this is kind of a big picture view of how our students are doing, but the teachers get much more in-depth to look at their specific students in their classes so they can see exactly what skills students are lacking. And then we should be able to compare that to our curriculum to see, is our curriculum aligned with the standards, and how do our students doing on those particular strands or those standards. So because we haven't had a full year of it, I can't say for sure. That's certainly something that we noticed when we saw the results.
Mrs. Gesson, through the chair, Mr. Testa, that was my question too. It's obviously obvious to everybody that drop off from second grade into third. So for clarification, this is the first year that we've conducted this particular test?
Yes, last year our first window was in December because we had to be trained first before we could roll it out, so we did not roll out the assessment as we did this year, the first few weeks of school.
Okay.
So we only completed 2 sessions, late fall and then spring. So.
Can you tell me how many different assessment tests we do with our students?
Well, last year we've kind of scaled down. This is our district-wide, part of our district-wide assessment. So all of our K through 10 students take this 3 times a year, and then 3 through 8 and 10 with the SBAC scores. And then at the elementary level, students complete unit assessments, whether it's in reading or math. They complete those math assessments. So those are more of the local assessments. This is more of a district-wide assessment that we're doing. So
essentially 3?
Give or take, yes. Yeah. From the district standpoint, yes, they're only taking SBAC and they're taking NWEA, and then the others are just unit assessments in math and reading and whatever quizzes and things that teachers, formative assessments that teachers use throughout the unit. But that is correct.
Thank you. Mrs. Arndt, yeah, through you to Mr. Testa, please. Bob, there's an awful lot of information, goal and sub-goal and all that. Is the staff proficient in taking that data and turning it into a classroom action plan?
Yes, this is our first year. Last year we kind of learned how to administer it. So this year teachers are getting much more comfortable with the reports. They're still learning. Today I was on the phone with Skinner Road School and they were asking about a particular report and how they want to share. So we're still building that capacity, but teachers are certainly getting more comfortable with it. It is also part of their SLO, which is part of their evaluations. It's not the only way that they're measuring reading progress, but it's one of the measures along with other measures that they include. So teachers have a vested interest in how their students are doing, and quite honestly, they see value in having that feedback on how their students are doing throughout the year. They also have access to interim assessments, like skills checklists, they call them. So if I have a student that didn't necessarily hit goal during the fall window, I can assess that student before the winter window with skills checklists. So I can really target some instruction, is what the call was today for Skinner Road. They've targeted instruction and they've been able to reassess using that skills checklist and see some nice growth. So I think the way the system is set up, teachers are getting much more comfortable with it and using it more and more in their classrooms.
Thank you.
Sure.
Through you. Mr. Testa, you made a comment about the norms being reset.
Yes, last year we were using 2011 norms. Every 4 years, NWEA re-norms. So of all the students across the country that are using these assessments. Every 4 years they update the norms.
Which part of the year was it done? Was it done like in January, so assessments that have been done all year, it was already adjusted, or was it adjusted sometime during the year?
This particular, last year we used 2011 norms, and then starting in the fall, they introduced new norms over the summer. So
Okay,
we're
so
starting-
students that took it in January and April were the
Used
old
last year's
norms.
2011
Okay.
norms, correct.
Thank you.
Anybody else? I have a question on slide number 5,
Okay.
which is, I believe it's the norms table, right?
Yes.
And so for instance, in the first, under the reading, grade 2, they said that, is that the 15%, 15.52% is the norm for the nation?
That's the standard deviation. So what they're saying is the average norm is 174.7. The range is if you add that 15.52 to it and you subtract it, so the range, they're expecting at least 70% of our students to be within that range, and so from 159 to about 190. That's what they're telling us.
All right, thank you.
Good question.
Just a comment, when I looked at these original scores, and these are without drilling down, but I think we should be proud of grade 2, because that's full day cap. That's the effects that you have in full day cap. I question the integrity of grade 1, because think about it, a 6-year-old doing a computer test. Yeah, they can play with their iPhones and text with 2 thumbs, but can they do word processing? Can they control a mouse? I don't think they have the developmental ability, OT, PT, physical therapy, occupational therapy, to do that. So I think there's a high degree in there of not being where it should be. I feel better about the grade 2 ones, but of course we gotta look through all of it there. But grade 2, the board should be proud. That's full day cap. That's a direct assessment of that.
If I can just add one more thing. I did speak with NWA today. They do have, last year they told us they were developing the assessment to be used through an iPad. So our students in the winter window will be able to complete my target is for our kindergarten and first grade students to be able to complete the assessment using the iPad in the winter. You won't see kindergarten students on there during the fall fall session because we didn't assess our kindergartners. We assess them twice a year in the winter and the spring. So it'll be interesting to see how our students how successful they are using the iPad. And I know they're much more comfortable. Our kindergarten and first grade students all have access to iPads. As part of our initiative, every classroom has at least 5 iPads. So it should make our time for assessing run much smoother, and it should allow our students that are already comfortable with the iPad, it should hopefully be seamless for them to be able to complete NWA assessments utilizing the iPad.
Sorry, one more question. Do you have any idea how much access was a problem for students when they were taking it, as far as, whether it was difficulty logging in, system problems that may have had some effect on the test?
During our fall window, NWA was under a cyber attack. So I know of certain buildings, they would log on and then they'd be logged off, then log on. And I also know that the wireless connectivity in some buildings, quite honestly, is better than other buildings. That should be addressed by the end of December. I know right now, currently, our buildings, all of our elementary, I'm looking at Mr. Picaro because I know that that project should be done. So that's one factor that should improve, certainly improve. But I know, I heard from a couple buildings and NWA as well that the connectivity during that window, because they were under a cyber attack, certainly affected that. So if you have a student that's logged on and then keeps getting booted off, you can probably imagine they probably will get a little frustrated after that. So that's certainly what was a factor that we couldn't account for. But we hope that won't be, that's a one-time thing. We won't have to worry about that.
Mr. Flynn.
Through the chair to Mr. McCary. You brought up about the keyboarding issue. They used to, in ECMS, have a keyboarding class in 6th grade. Now, if I recall correctly, was it moved down to 3rd grade?
I don't think there are any, and I apologize for being new, but from what I understand, there are no technology word processing in any of our elementary schools.
Okay, so it's still maybe in 6th grade? Right, is that what you're saying?
I'm looking at Mr. Testa, and I don't know if it's...
Yeah, yes and no. At the elementary level, we do utilize Type to Learn, but we don't have a special that is, dedicated to keyboarding, which we probably should be looking at that. 6th grade, and traditionally they did have a typing course. That's kind of evolved into some other research and other things, but they still do, they spend a little bit of time on that. However, in my opinion, we need to get to them much earlier than that, because we're asking our 3rd grade students to type on the Chromebook or a computer. They need to have the ability to be able to do that. So certainly something that we need to look into.
Just to comment back to you, Mr. Quinn, I was at Skinner Road today. It's bad when the superintendent's at a school, because then, I'm with the teachers, we're talking. So I was there with the reading teachers as they were doing it. 1st grade, they wanted to retest the class. We saw improvement, it was great. So I sat next to one student and he kept touching the screen. And I said to him, he's on a desktop. I said, you can't do that. He goes, what do you mean I can't do that? And he was trying to do it like an iPad. And, I felt, I talked to him and, he was fine. But that just gives you a small example of they may not have the ability to take the test, cognitively, because they're thinking iPad and they can touch it, or their screen's at home, and one kid bumped the computer screen and he went to the next question because he tapped it by mistake. So I think there's a lot of irregularities in this in the younger grades. So back to your point, Mr. Tessa's, we need technology education as low as we can go, even if we start in kindergarten.
Because, it's the hunt and peck aspect of it, instead of they're focusing on trying to find the right key instead of trying to focus on what the task at hand is.
Exactly.
Mrs. Russell? Mark kind of said what I wanted to say. Sorry. Okay.
Still in your thunder.
Thank you.
All right, does anyone else have any,
Thank you, through the chair, Mr. Testa. And maybe I'm the only one here that thinks that I would rather have students take a paper test than waste brain knowledge at a 6-year-old level learning home note typing. The NWA assessments, how much detail does a teacher get for each specific student regarding each question on the test?
They don't get at each question. However, they do, based on their RIT score, they do have in the continuum, one of those slides I had there, it shows skills they've kind of mastered and then skills they're ready to learn. And they have a continuum, which is part of the NWA report, where the teachers can drill down and see, if I have 5 kids within this range, these are the skills they've mastered, and these are the skills that they're ready to learn next. So they have some data there that they can drill down and really target some instruction within their classrooms.
Could you define skills for me then?
They're related to all the standards, so some of the bigger domain headings of the standards, so whether it's math or reading, the teachers have access to all the specific skills that make up that particular domain of the standard, and they can target instruction based on that. There's a list of different standards there. However, they still need to assess to know specifically, okay, these are the standards. This is, I think Skinner Road was doing that, where the little skills checklists are great check-ins to really focus on, okay, here's another skill that that particular group of students has mastered. Let's move on to the next one. So there's a lot of capability where our teachers, quite honestly, in the past, whether it was SBAC, we didn't have the ability to really know, other than that one-time snapshot on SBAC. It was a one-time assessment once a year, snapshot, and then you didn't get the feedback until months and months. You had to wait 3 years. So within 24 hours, teachers have that data, and they can access that data. So as I said before, throughout the year, I'm sure they'll be more and more comfortable with the reports and how they're using the reports.
All right, let me back up a little bit from this assessment then, since this is aligned to Common Core then, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, again, they're doing a study, it's aligned to the Common Core, now we're looking at a more deeper level of how closely it's aligned to SBAC as well.
Okay, so in a classroom at this point, with the Common Core curriculum, how much control do teachers have over assessments outside of these major tests? So the individual chapter tests that we used to get in school, does that still happen?
Yes.
Is that something that a teacher creates anymore, or is that part of Common Core's?
All of our assessments, for example, I can give you math, for example. This past summer, K-5, I had a committee of teachers. We revised every single math assessment for every unit, K-5. So the teachers have developed them, they have a say. Last year, we adopted a new math resource. We used their assessments, but this past summer, we made them our own, much more kid-friendly. So the teachers had 100% say in what those assessments look like.
But it's the same assessment given across the board, so the teachers have the input into creating a single test that's then given everywhere.
Correct. That assessment, whether you're Unit 1 in Lake Street or Maple Street or Skinner Road, Unit 1 should be the same unit. You should measure, have the same standards. So by the end of that unit, all of our students should be measured on that particular same type of assessment.
I understand that the curriculum should be the same, what the students learn should be the same across the board, but I don't think that the assessment of that necessarily needs to be the same across the board. Maybe I'm wrong here, but to me, part of the creativity of being a teacher is doing some of this stuff yourself and having your own way of assessing how you know you taught to those standards. And I think we're pulling this back into more of a generic overview. I don't know, I think freedoms have been lost to teachers in this stuff. And I look at these assessments and I just don't think they give the same detail that a teacher can get themselves if they have the control to assess how they know they taught. That's all. Thank you.
Does anybody else have any questions or comments? Thank you very much, Bob.
Okay, thank you.
Look forward to the next report. Move on to item 6.2, approval of the Board of Education meeting calendar. Mr. Kemp.
I move that the board approve the 2016 Board of Education meeting calendar as presented. Appreciate a second.
Mr. Polina? Anybody have any questions or comments? Mrs. Russell?
October 17th and November 14th, should that be vice versa?
No, the reason that was done is that this year, as you know, we ran into an issue with we had a meeting on the night of Jewish holiday. And the way the Jewish holidays fall this year, we decided to have one meeting in October as opposed to two. Unless you guys have a problem with that, but that's what we're presenting as an option. So that is why, so we just have one less meeting. Mr. Kemp?
I'd like to understand how many snow days we have baked into this year.
No, we just add them at the end of the year as they come along.
Okay. Because you can bake into it an assumption you might have one or two. Just thinking of how we had tried to adjust graduation and project graduations events in some years, and hopefully avoid causing them any problems in their events scheduling.
Right now, we're only looking at our Board of Education meeting calendar. We've already approved the calendar for this school year.
The meeting calendar.
This is just the meeting
I
calendar that
apologize.
we've got a motion on that.
Sorry.
Anybody else have any questions or concerns about the meeting, Board of Ed meeting, Alan?
Let's say that.
Okay, all those in favor? It's unanimous, the motion carries. Next on the agenda is the approval of the Board of Education Rules of Procedure. Now, in your packets, what is in red are suggestions for changes. It's not to say we have to have those, but these are just suggestions that I received from different people. So we're open to any suggestions anybody else might have in regards to this. Mrs. Arndt?
I'd like to move that the board approve the rules of procedure as presented.
Is there a second? Mrs. Ressler? Okay, are there any discussion, questions, comments? Mr. Cleaver?
If there's a particular item that is particularly complex or requires a lot more effort, by these rules, a particular member is limited to a total of 5 minutes per item.
Right, but we knew we had trouble following that rule when we first put this in 2 years ago. So that's why we added the sentence, at the discretion of the chair, follow-up questions may be permitted. So that would,
above and beyond.
that would get you above and beyond the 2 times 5 minutes each.
Okay, fair enough.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you. For that same question, speaking twice to a motion, does that include amendments to the motion? Because or would you have an opportunity to speak?
This doesn't say, this just says on an agenda item, it doesn't say.
Right, on an agenda item, but that's what I'm getting at. So are you considering it twice on the agenda item or twice on the motions that are made? Because if I speak twice on an agenda topic and then a motion is made that changes something, would I have an opportunity again?
That's the way I would interpret it. I don't know if everybody else agrees with that. I would interpret that.
That's the interpretation, that's fine with me.
Yeah. Does everybody else agree with that? Okay. As long as we're all on the same page. Any other questions or comments on the suggested changes? Okay, all those in favor of approving the Board of Education Rules of Procedure as presented? It's unanimous. Motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next is establish Board of Education priorities. And then over to you, Mr. McCarron.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher. I hope Mr. Bacall wrote them down, because they were all on big sheets of paper. You're the best. So, thank you very much.
If you can read my writing.
I can read your writing. So the Board of Education met today in the Finance Committee meeting at 6 o'clock. These are the priorities for the following school year. Under mission statement would be to support human resources and its functions. Under goal number 1, a marketing/communication and public relations campaign, public relations outreach, specifically marketing the VOAC program. 2, additional resources, including and up to an additional teacher for talented and gifted for the Vernon Public Schools. The next one would be professional development/professional learning. And the last one would be to look at our capital improvements plan, and we would also look at our facilities/maintenance fees for the Vernon facilities.
I'm not sure. Did we miss something there?
No, I'm not. I'm not saying that we missed. I'm not saying that we missed anything.
Okay.
I'm wondering if there's the opportunity to add something at this late time.
You can have that discussion.
We can have that discussion. In light of the discussion that we've had this evening, I was thinking during the discussion that we didn't really talk about technology education. And I think moving that down to the lowest grade possible was did I miss that?
Through the chair, Mr. Kemp brought it up in facilities, and there is a in finance. There is a 6-year technology plan that we want to look into, a 6-year capital improvement. And I believe we have a technology deployment plan. So I don't know if you wanted to make that a priority or just continue the plan. And I'm asking a question, I guess.
Are you referring to having a technology program for younger students? Is that what you're?
Yes. And I don't know if that, I don't believe that's in our technology plan.
It is not,
Right.
but I would ask for your indulgence, and we will talk about it when it comes to budget time. Because that's going to be in my budget. We'll talk about that.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, sorry.
Mrs. Arndt?
I apologize for not saying it during the Finance Committee meeting, so if you want to throw it out, I understand that. When we talked about professional development, I really wish I had clarified that I think when we say professional development, we're thinking teachers and administrators, but I'd like to see us expand that to all of our staff, secretaries, and anybody who's responsible to relating to the public and to students, and I'd also like to see the board invest in professional development for us as well. So I guess I wanted to just qualify that PD isn't just teachers and administrators, it should be across the system.
So just to clarify, these budget priorities are sent to me. I interpret it as professional development for everybody.
Thank you.
Board members, certified staff, non-certified paras, students, everybody.
I'm glad you said that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
I'm glad we clarified it, thank you.
Okay, so anybody else have any questions or comments on that? Do you need me to reread them? Trish, do you need me to reread them? Okay. Okay. All right, so, well, we need a motion, actually. We haven't had a motion, I'm sorry. Read that backwards. Mrs. Arndt?
I move to approve the board priorities as presented.
Is there a second? Mr. Polina? Any other discussion or comments? All those in favor? It's unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, next we have an asset disposal request. I'll turn that to Mr. Picaro.
Through you, Madam Chair, in your board packet, there are actually 3 requests, one for each for Maple Street School, Lake Street School, and Rockville High School. I'd like to go over them collectively and ask the board to approve the asset disposal request collectively as well. There's various equipment presented before you following the pattern over the past several meetings as well. Some of this equipment that we're disposing includes overhead projectors, cassette players and recorders, old student desks and chairs made of wood, metal, that are not functional, that are no longer needed or can be repurposed in district, old file cabinets that no longer function or can be repurposed in district, and there's an old floral cooler at the BOAC program that we can no longer use. So with that, I'd be glad to answer any questions. I would add that as per our previous request, all of these items, we first look in district to see if we can repurpose them. We look in the town to see if they can be repurposed there. And by the time they get to this point in the process, they can't. And so we'd like to sell them for scrap, or get whatever we can at publicsurplus.com. That's the request before you this evening.
Anyone want to make a motion? Mr. Kemp?
I move that the board approve the asset disposal request as presented.
Is there a second, Mr. Layton? Any questions, comments, discussion? Mrs. Gessing? Yes, through the chair, to Mr. Picaro. I heard you say sell them for scrap, and are there any other opportunities to sell them? I mean, I'm seeing like file cabinets. I don't know, are they in such condition that somebody might pay more than just the scrap rate?
Through the chair, to say, whatever's functional that we can no longer repurpose, we'll sell in the condition that it's in. So I apologize that they're not all going to be sold as scrap. Some of them, like some of the chairs, are okay, but they're not useful in the district anymore, and they're just taking up valuable space, classroom space, or other storage space that we need. But we, bottom line, don't need them in district anymore. So we'll sell them in the condition they're in, and they'll sell in that condition. So it's not just for scrap. We'll take whatever we can get for them. If we can get a premium price, we'll take it.
And what is the venue for selling them?
Through the chair, we set up a program online. It's a government, made for government selling. It's like the government version of eBay. We set it up in partnership with the town to Department of Public Works uses the system as well. And so we were second to join on to that. And essentially, we post our items. They're posted for a period of time, and once they're posted, any member of the public can go and buy them, and then all the funds that we receive are turned over to the town in the form of revenue to the town. They are town assets at the end of the day.
Do you have any idea of how much money we might have made as we've been doing this? Just out of curiosity.
To you, Madam Chair, not that much at this point. Most of the stuff, the scrap that we sell, it doesn't carry a premium price tag for some of the items that don't have a purpose. And I can get an exact amount. I would estimate maybe a few $100 at this point, but it's better than nothing. We do, however, repurpose a lot of items before they get here. That's helpful for saving money. And we also, when we dispose books, they go to various sources, not always just being thrown away. Most of the books we do give away to other districts or anyone that wants to claim them in the community, outside of the community, or the country, and so forth.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor of approving the asset disposal request as presented? Unanimous? Motion carries. Okay, budget amendment request, Mr. Picaro.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. Before you is a budget amendment request that requires a board motion for approval. This is a transfer of funds from Center Road School, Lake Street School to central office. As you can see in the comments concerning the requested budget amendment, it is to transfer $9,600 from salary accounts in those two respective schools to central office account that we use to pay for other professional and technical services, primarily nursing substitutes, and the nursing substitute services that we use through that account through Ready Nursing. What had happened this year, to put it in more context, and I think it warrants a further explanation before you move on this, is that our summer school nursing staff, the staff person became ill, and at that point we offered the position and the hours that were budgeted, 5 hours a day times 5 days a week times 6 weeks over the summer, to other staff in district first in hopes that they would take it, but they did not. And so we had no alternative other than to not provide the services, which was not an option, and that's why we had to go to our substitute nursing account. So it came in at a higher price because our substitute nurses, we pay a premium for that service versus the hourly rate that we offer to our staff currently. By the way, that is something we are looking at administratively, and that you will see again through Mr. McCary in the budget when we get deeper into the budget cycle. But the good news here is that we're not robbing Peter to pay Paul. We did have 2 nurses separated from service at top step, so the savings that we yielded from that are being used to directly offset the increased cost to pay for the substitute nursing services at the premium price for the summer coverage.
Thank you. Anyone want to make a motion on this? Mr. Flynn?
Motion that the board approve the budget amendment request as discussed.
And a second. Mrs. Russell. Any questions or comments or concerns on this issue? Mrs. Arndt?
Through you to Mr. Picaro, please. I understand the explanation, Michael, that 2 nurses at a step left you a differential. Does that happen across the system a lot, with teachers coming and going, and you end up with funding that you can move to different places, or is this unique?
Through the chair, it happens. It happens in any large organization. It will happen to varying degrees. For budget planning purposes, we try to get it right in the middle, so that if it happens up or it happens down, it evens out towards the end of the fiscal year. But we did discuss that. That's something when we move further into the budget discussions and budget workshops, which we refer to as taking a risk or a risk account. And we have to plan for a certain amount of that variability, a teacher separating that we maybe couldn't hire, or an administrator or other staff person that we couldn't hire on July 1st when the budget year clicks over. There's going to be some money left over there. So in those cases, yeah, we will use those funds to transfer and make up the gaps in other parts of the budget if needed.
So there's no potential for like, pot of gold out there or something? That doesn't happen? Okay, I was just hoping.
Okay, any other comments, Mr. Director?
Actually, just a comment for recording purposes, because it sounded like Mr. Picaro said Center Road School, and this says Skinner Road School, yes?
It is, thank you very much, it is Skinner Road School. Thank you, Ms.
Okay, anything else?
Should have had another cookie.
All those in favor? It's unanimous, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, year-to-date budget report, Mr. Carr.
Through you, Madam Chair. Presented before you is, for informational purposes, is the year-to-date budget report. Also included is our executive summary. At the Finance, I would like to note also for the record, at the Finance Committee this evening, we did provide an updated executive summary. The changes that were made were in the inclusion of the fiscal year 13 and 14 school security grant at the top of the grant section of the document, and also a placeholder for the Alliance District School Building Grant. You'll see 0 in there because this reflects, as we discussed in finance, what's actually been received, but we have a potential of up to $1.25 million for that grant. At this point in time on the local budget, we have expended $14.7 million. We've encumbered approximately $20.8 million, leaving us an available budget of about $8.1 million. That shows a percent used of 84.30%. At this point, I have no concerns with the current budget and the burn rate that we're following at this point in time. I would say there's only one negative on there, and that's right at the top, of course, under longevity, and it's 4 cents short, so I apologize for that. But that's a rounding issue. That's not a concern for budget transfer or anything at this point.
Okay. Anyone have any questions for Mr. Carr? No? Okay, thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to item 6.8, reports from Board of Education liaisons regarding attendance at organizations and committee meetings. Anybody have anything to report? Mrs. Russell?
I was at Maple Street School this past Thursday for their PTO meeting, and I was so impressed. They had 10 parents attend, and I was impressed with the attendance. It's completely across the board. You could hear the mothers. I mean, when you listen to the mothers, they were so excited about either fundraising or some sort of community planning. And I just wanted to keep, it's just wonderful to sit there and listen to them. So I think Maple Street's at a good start right here with the community and the parents.
Thank you, that's great to hear. Anybody else have anything to Mr. Kim?
Yes, I attended the PTO President's meeting, and a brief summary of that would include their conversation, about fundraising projects that each of them are on and trying to spin off of each other's successes and challenges. There were reporting requirements also that were shared with them so that they understand what they need to be doing, and they expressed difficulties in getting their governance councils up to speed with various elementary schools, in particular not having enough people to be on PTOs and governance councils as well. So that concludes the PTO piece. I also attended the CREC council meeting, and from that I brought to our superintendent some policies that were recently passed by CREC reflecting current legislation, and some information from Mr. Vaccaro about the Medicaid reimbursement potential for nurses' time as well as behavior specialist time, and the likelihood that transportation costs will be reimbursable, which, if that really is true, would represent quite a bit of additional money that we would get back. Would you agree?
Absolutely, definitely.
Good. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have anything to report? Mr. RHS was on Friday night. I was unable to go because we were at a cave. Does anyone know how it turned out, or did anybody hear anything about it? Because I did not.
I believe one of our superintendent award winners was crowned Mr. RHS.
That's good. That's great. And tonight they had their fall sports award banquet, so needless to say, I didn't go to that either, so I hope it went well for everybody. I don't have anything else to report.
I just want to add to the board members in front of you is a hard copy of the Board of Education policies. I want to thank Mrs. Buchanan, she put them all together. They're updated on the website and in front of you. And for those of you who are on the policy committee, the latest K quarterly update is for you as well. And we're going to meet on November 30th to do those policies, or at least to start the conversation of where we're going to go with the policies. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to item 7.0 to review and update the Board of Education calendar. Does anybody have anything to add to the calendar? Or subtract or whatever? I noticed that the RHS South Windsor football game is not on the calendar. The game is on Thanksgiving Day at 10 a.m. at South Windsor High School, if anyone's interested in going. And last is opportunity for questions from the press. And he left, so I assume there are no questions.
Before you adjourn, I'm not sure where to do certain things where there's an opportunity to. I think it was really important to thank Trish and whoever supported her in this policy manual project. That's a huge big deal and very needed, and I think we need to say thank you. And I think it's important also to acknowledge that Mr. Vaccaro is our new Area 3, thank you, representative from CAVE, and I just think that the public should know that we've got a great representative, and he is our go-to person. But I don't know where those things should be said in a board meeting, so I apologize for that.
All right, well, thank you. Yes, congratulations to Mr. Vaccaro, and thank you, Trish. I hope you didn't do that all by yourself, did you? Oh, good. That's a lot of work. All right, does anybody, I don't believe there's anything else, so we have one more motion to entertain. Mrs. Russell, is there a second? We all want to stay? Mr. Kopek? Okay, all those in favor of adjourning? No? It's unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
We'll have a very happy Thanksgiving,
Happy
everyone, who I
Thanksgiving,
think don't
everybody.
see. I will see you.